try to run, but I see I'm not that fast. I think I'm first, but I surely finish last. It's day and night. The lonely soul that seems to free his mind at night. He's all alone, some things will never change. The lonely soul that seems to free his mind at night.
Hello everybody and welcome back. It is Monday, March 21st, 2022, and you're listening to episode 134 of the Can I Say Something podcast. Your host and a recluse with a juicy caboose, Damien. Joining me today is...
Derek McDuff.
Today on the show, we'll be discussing what we've been watching, including spoilers for everything involved, last-minute Oscar thoughts, a conversation about Drive My Car and other Hamaguchi projects, and a hot-off-the-press review of Pixar's latest film, Turning Red, followed by our top 5 favorite Pixar movies. Right into the show, bicycle@gmail.com, bicycle on Twitter. Subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, rate and review it on Apple Podcast. Tell a friend, family member, or stranger. What's up, man? How you doing?
Hey man, doing well, taking it easy, having a good Saturday night here recording, but I know this is going out Monday, but yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, you ruined the magic of audio, the magic of podcasting. Through the magic of podcasting.
The veil is destroyed. Everyone sees the man behind the curtain.
Exactly, Ozman is here. So this is, like you said, this is Saturday, but it's about a week and a day before the Oscars. How excited are you?
I mean, I kind of was not super stoked about the lineup this year. It's a lot of the same picks, and it's a lot of just kind of the same Oscar stuff that you see year in and year out. And it's funny because it reminds me of I was listening to I don't know if you're familiar with the podcast called Podcast Like It's 1999.
No.
Okay, well, I know you and I have talked about how great of a film year 1999 is, and that's a podcast kind of dedicated to that.
Nice. Where
every week they review a different movie from '99, and they did an Oscar one that I was listening to, and it's just like I kind of can't believe the shit that got nominated that year for the Oscar, and looking back, like, wow, so we didn't nominate like Being John Malkovich or The Matrix or any of these incredible films for Best Picture, but we did nominate The Cider House Rules. So and I feel like that's kind of the year we're having right now, where there are so many good movies that are getting overlooked for just middling dramas.
Yeah, was that the year that Gladiator won, 99?
That was 2000. The Gladiator one.
Was that 99?
The ceremony was in 2001, but sorry, was that?
I'm trying to think. Was that wasn't Shakespeare in Love? Was that 99?
That was 98. So the Oscars were held in 99, but it was for the 98 movies. So the Oscars that were held in the year 2000 for the 99 movies were, The Matrix and I think American Beauty one, which is a movie that has not aged well.
No, not at all. I haven't revisited that in a while, but I would imagine not. But I mean, it's not like it's a middling year. I feel like, again, I mentioned this before, but 2019 was a very good year, probably one of the best years on record. Last couple of years just hasn't held a candle to it. But for the last few years, and I have the article here for Drive My Car is nominated for Best Picture, and it is the fourth movie in the last 4 years that have had a non-English movie being nominated for Best Picture. So make a little bit of progress here and there. Yeah, so we have...
Yeah, and then also... go ahead.
I was just to say the Parasite, obviously, just to mention what they were. Roma in 2018, Parasite in 2019, Minari in 2020, and this year, Drive My Car. So it's good representation there.
Yeah, and then Coda as well, which is English, but it's also sign language. I don't know what the exact breakdown of that is, but... and that's happened before with Children of a Lesser God, but... feels worth noting that that is a movie that is largely in another language, also being represented at the Oscars.
Yeah, and just so the last couple award shows that have been going on the past week or so, past couple of weeks. Critics' Choice Awards. The awards went to Power of the Dog for Best Picture. Will Smith got another award. I think this was after his SAG award. He got Best Actor there, so just kind of cements his winning at the Oscars there. But Jessica Chastain got Best Actress. So I don't have it pulled up, but I believe one of us had her for Best Actress and one of us didn't.
Yeah, you've got her. I've got Olivia Colman.
Gotcha.
That's a tough category. I think that is the toughest category to pick right now, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I always go into this, there's, they talk about this on Big Picture where it's like your head and your heart. Your heart wants, maybe Olivia Colman, but your head goes for, the person that's been nominated and been winning awards leading up to the Oscars. You have to put your head in the mind of the Academy voters of like, a lot of them are probably older, probably haven't actually seen the movies. So they're probably basing their vote off of who's popular, who's winning a lot of awards, things like that.
See, my heart would go with Kristen Stewart, honestly. Like, right. I think she gave such a great performance in that. Like, I had my problems with the movie, but her acting was definitely not one of them. And I think she's a really great actress, and she deserves some recognition. I think I just picked Olivia Colman because the Oscars like to pick people who they picked before, and so that's why I was just kind of leaning towards Olivia Colman. But I could really go anyway with that pick, with that category.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Going to be on the 27th, so it'll be fascinating to see what goes on then. So why don't we dive into our things we've been watching? You and I have seen Drive My Car. I've seen it twice now. One of my favorite movies of the year. Tell me what you thought of Drive My Car.
It was really good. I really enjoyed it. It is a movie that is 3 hours long, and you do, unlike some other movies, feel its length. It is a very, very... It's I guess talking heavy. Yes, yeah. There's a lot of just kind of like dialogue in the movie, which I understand why it is kind of a movie about communication. It does have all these different languages in it. Not just Japanese, but also Korean, English, Mandarin, even a lot of Japanese sign language is present in it. But it is you have to kind of devote some time to watching this movie, and I think it's well worth it. But it's not a movie. I mean, when you say you've watched it twice, like props to you, man, because it was a lot for me to kind of like sit down, and I watched it over Discord with somebody, and unfortunately we were kind of like talking over a lot of it, but we were able to still pay attention because of the subtitles. But yeah, it's a good one. But it was the last movie that I got to of the Best Pictures, partially because of the length and partially because just not a lot happening like in it that is super that would draw me in. It's just kind of about conversations, which is good, but it's not exactly a barn burner.
Exactly. You mentioned like you took acting classes for a while in college. Did you do any of the plays that they were doing in this movie, the Chekhov plays they were doing?
So I didn't do any of the plays. They mentioned, I think, Long Day's Journey into Night. I did a report on that one, so I know a little bit about that one. That's not Chekhov, but I think that gets touched on in it. I know Chekhov because I studied him, and obviously he's the guy who invented. I think we were texting about this Chekhov's gun. That's his whole thing. So he's just kind of, he's one of the old masters that always would get talked about as a theater major.
Yeah, so they do Uncle Vanya. Probably the second and longest section in this movie is devoted to them doing a production of Uncle Vanya, which, going into this, again, going in blind to a lot of this and not being a theater person, the first time they do practice and do the rehearsal of it, and the guy starts like accosting the woman, like almost assaulting her. I'm like, what, is this real? Is this part of the play? Is he like gone crazy? What is happening here? It was sort of like, I watched Synecdoche, New York a few years ago, which is basically like a play within a play within a play. And I was wondering, like, are we doing this sort of thing where the guy is actually an asshole, but they're doing a play about him being an asshole? I had no idea what was going on. Was there any part of this movie where like I'm completely lost? I have no idea what is actually real, what isn't real.
The one part where I was just like, oh, I don't know if this is supposed to be like the play or if it's real life, is right after when his wife dies and he is still doing the Uncle Vanya play, and then he just kind of goes off and has a moment. I was like, wait, was he supposed to exit there, or is this a dramatic thing? I couldn't really tell. That was the one time when I was kind of like scratching my head. Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think this play or this movie is to Uncle Vanya what Mank is to Citizen Kane, where it's
Yeah.
like you could still watch it and get it, but if you have the context of the other work, it which is so like it's the DNA of it is just so prevalent throughout the whole film that you will get a lot more from it. And I only had a very very cursory understanding of Uncle Vanya, so there was even a lot that went over my head for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. One of my favorites of the year. Where would you put this in terms of just like the best, that movies nominated for best picture? Is this top of the list, middle of the list, bottom of the list?
It's it's definitely the middle of the list. I recently kind of did my own ranking of the best picture nominees, and I had this one at number six. Um, I did there. That's pretty tight, honestly. My like a lot of my rankings. I think I had everything from number three to number eight was all I rated 4 stars on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
So it is kind of it's kind of there in the middle. For sure. I was going back and forth between this and number five, but I think it's right there in the middle of the best picture nominees for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Raisuke Hamaguchi, the director of Drive My Car, is one of my favorite new directors that I've stumbled across for the past few years. He had 2 films released last year, Drive My Car and a movie called Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy. So I also checked that out, and that was very good as well. He also co-wrote Wife of a Spy, which was a very interesting World War II spy thriller that takes place in Japan during World War II. I would highly recommend checking that out. I believe Wheel of Fortune Fantasy and Wife of a Spy, and also another one I checked out called Asako 1 and 2 are all on Mubi. I actually canceled my Criterion this week or last week because everything's on HBO Max. I also canceled my Netflix because that went up to $20. So definitely, trimming my streaming services here. So yeah, Asako 1 and 2, very interesting movie. The basic premise is about a woman who falls in love with 2 men who look the same but act completely differently. This was a really great little movie that Hamaguchi did in, I believe, 2018. It premiered at the Palme d'Or Cannes Film Festival. Didn't win the award that year, but it is very good. It's one of those, if you like Drive My Car, I'd highly recommend watching this as well. And so yeah, definitely recommend. I like Hamaguchi is probably one of my favorite directors working today. So yep, really good stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. So some other guys that I've been checking, getting caught up with, some directors and some filmmakers I've been catching up with recently are the Safdie brothers. We talked about them a couple of weeks ago, where you just caught up with their Uncut Gems. Uncut Gems. So they had a movie in 2014 called Heaven Knows What. It is a psychological drama film directed by Josh and Benny Safdie and written by Ronald Bronstein. So I have in my notes, it's like, we watched Red Rocket a few weeks ago. And so if you came away from that movie and said, I would like a movie with 4 to 5 of these guys, 4 to 5 Mikeys, then I would recommend watching Heaven Knows. Yeah, I'd recommend watching Heaven Knows What. It is starring a woman named Ariel Holmes and Caleb Landry Jones, which I think the first time I saw him was in Get Out from that year, from 2017. He's a really great actor. He's in this. And it just is that, picture a bunch of what's the guy's name? Mikeys, 4 to 5 Mikeys just running around. They're all,
Sounds horrible. I mean, I'm sure it's a good movie, but like, Jesus.
Yeah, it's very just anxiety ridden. Just that whole like, I need some drugs. Hey man, you got some drugs. You got this thing. You owe me from last time. Just a bunch of just degenerates running around. I'm totally for rehabilitation. I'm for treating addiction as a disease. You really need to treat it as a mental illness. I'm totally for that. But just in the moment, watching these people do what they have to do to get the drugs is so frustrating to see what they're doing and see them steal shit. And they do this thing, which I've seen this in a few movies and I've heard is actually a thing where you go and buy things from like a dollar store and then go and sell it to somebody else or sell it to like, a booth on the street or something. They steal a bunch of like 5-hour energy drinks and bring it to this other convenience store down in the corner and make a little bit of profit just to get their kick. It is just, it's just a wild movie. Highly recommend it. That is on Mubi, one of my favorite streaming services now. And they had a double bill with that movie and Miss 45. It was called their New York Street Vendors double bill. Miss 45 is a movie I've always heard about, always wanted to see. It is a revenge film. Came out in 1981, directed by Abel Ferrara, stars Zoe Tamarales. And it was just a very, very low budget revenge movie. A woman gets raped twice in a period of like an hour or something. So she goes on this revenge spree, just has a handgun and just goes out. It reminded me very much of, remember that movie from I think 2015 with Jodie Foster called like, I forget what the name of it was. The Brave one.
The one with Naveen Andrews in it, right?
Yeah, The Brave One or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of that. Just a woman going on a killing spree for like an hour and a half. So very, very, very good. It's again based in New York City Garment District. Very good one of those. So definitely recommend checking that out. Let's see. Let me just go through a couple of these. So again, trying to fill out all of the directors I love. I want to fill out their filmography. So I checked out Christian Petzold. He's the director of a few things I've seen in the last couple of years. He directed Phoenix. It was a World War II thriller in 2014. He directed a movie called Transit in 2018 and Undina from a couple of years ago. Christian Petzold is one of my favorite directors. I believe he is, let me see his actual nationality. I think he's German, so he directs a lot of German movies. And this movie Barbara takes place in 1980, so it's still, the wall is still up between the east and west of Germany. Which just a quick tangent. It's crazy how we think of like history as being old and all the World War II and the effects of World War II are pretty much just ancient history. And the Berlin Wall fell in 1989 when I was still alive. So
yeah,
all of these artifacts. Yeah.
When did it fall?
1989. Oh, December, I think.
Okay, yeah.
December.
So I would have been alive then too. I would have, yeah.
Yeah.
That's so wild. I was thinking about something the other day because I have a coworker. He's he's 17, so he was born in 2004, and I was like, wow. So the Berlin Wall is more like. The September 11th is more history to him than the Berlin Wall is to me. Like it's insane to think about.
Yeah, it really is because just the think about the East and the West, and the East was communist country and the West wasn't. So you can still see today if you look like a satellite image of the East Germany, what used to be East Germany, what used to be West Germany. You can still see they're very much technologically what do you call it? From back then, they're just not as advanced still.
They're just kind of impaired technologically.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, impaired is a great word. So this takes place in 1980, still has East Germany. People are still trying to get over to West Germany from East Germany. And it's basically a movie about a woman named Barbara who's a physician, and she's just, doing her job from day to day and trying to get enough money to go to West Germany. And it's just a very good, little drama. I'd highly recommend watching that on Mubi. So let me see what else we got. After Yang, this is a really good one too. I think I had to sign up for Showtime to see this. This is Kogonada's new movie. If you're not familiar with Kogonada, anybody listening, he directed a movie called Columbus a few years ago with Haley Lou Richardson and the guy from what's the White Castle movie? I can't remember the guy's name. Harold and Kumar.
John Cho?
John Cho, thank you. Yeah, John Cho and Haley Lou Richardson were in a movie called Columbus. It was a very, again, lugubrious thing, but very cool. Like every shot is composed really, really well. I believe he was a photographer, or he did a lot of video essays. Kogonada did, so it's a very beautiful movie. Every shot could be a wallpaper, or it could be a picture that you would put on your wall. So this is a movie. After Yang is a new movie from him from last year, starring Colin Farrell, Jodie Turner-Smith, Justin Min, and Haley Lou Richardson. It is about a family's attempts to repair their unresponsive robotic child. So it is very much like a more slower, quieter version of Ex Machina from a few years ago. So
I thought you were going to say of AI, artificial intelligence.
It could be AI, which is interesting you brought that up because I don't know if you listen to the... what is the podcast that they do? It's like a film spotting, the sister version of film.
Filmcast?
The film cast is that one, but also they did. Let me look it up so I don't forget it. They have Film Spotting, but then they have other people from Film Spotting. They have another one. Let me find it here. The Next Picture Show is a podcast about movies where they pair two movies together. A couple of weeks ago, they did Run, Lola, Run, and they did Kimi. So they'll take a contemporary movie and they'll pair it with a similar older movie. So really recommend listening to that. So interesting you brought up AI because they paired AI with After Yang. So they're very, very, very similar. Huh. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think I heard it on the film cast they compared them, is what made me think of it.
Yeah. It's a very... very good comparison there. So highly recommend watching After Yang. I think I had to sign up for Showtime Now, Showtime whatever.
Yeah, because I heard they grabbed the rights after Sundance. Because I was like, oh, I'm going to see this, and I was like, I'm not going to get a subscription to Showtime. So. Yeah,
no, it's not worth it. Then just one more thing quickly. Paddington 1 and 2, I've heard really good things about that. I think they have a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes right now, so those are very good. If you have a kid or just want to watch a very lighthearted comedies, recommend watching Paddington 1 and 2. So that's pretty much, yeah.
I was going to say, it's one of those ones that I've been meaning to get to for a while because I just hear, especially 2, is just like the most good-natured thing you can watch.
Yeah, very, very nice little movies. So why don't we get to one thing that we both been watching. Actually, why don't we go to what you've been watching before we get to the same thing we've watched. You watched Winning Time. I've heard a lot about this because they were talking so much about this on The Watch, the Ringer podcast. They're highly into sports things, into TV shows. So tell me what you thought of this.
So yeah, I'm absolutely the target audience for this, where I am a person who is very much into sports things and kind of like pseudo documentary things, shot a little bit like a doc. I love 30 for 30s and all that stuff, and I love Adam McKay's comedy. So I was like very much like, okay, this is right up my alley. I'm also a huge Laker fan, and I've had my dad for years talk about, the good old days, like, oh, Kareem and Magic back in the day, that was the bet, like I just hearing all these stories of the Lakers. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to get to see this prestige show about it. And it's got all these great actors. And I watched it and I was like, this is not very interesting. Like, I don't know. It didn't really hit for me. Really? So I can't even imagine what somebody who isn't into all this stuff would feel. So it wasn't bad or anything. I was just like, it was not engaged at all. It was very much like the Adam McKay thing was kind of like almost reaching its breaking point, where John C. Reilly just kept turning to the cameras like, hey, guess what? I'm gonna buy the Lakers. Isn't that crazy? And it's like, okay, I get it. You can. There's some good stuff in it. One of the things I liked there's a sequence where they are talking about Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, and they're using all these buzzwords that always get thrown around, and then kind of you hear like the announcers say, oh, hardworking, like etc., and then it's just like white, and then it's like, oh, he's a natural athlete, black. So it's the the kind of very pseudo racist kind of terminology that, especially then, but even still today, gets thrown around with white and black athletes, and I like they kind of like put a flag on that, and it was a little bit like on the nose, like pay attention to this, but I thought that worked. That, and then what's his name? Oh my gosh, John Connor, he plays Jerry West in it. Like the original, or the John Connor, the most recent one, Jason Clarke, right?
Oh, okay.
He is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is so angry in it, and he's just like having, I feel like having the time of his life, just like shouting and yelling and going just crazy and giving this big performance, and I thought he was pretty great. But that was really the only things I could really say that I enjoyed about the show.
Yeah, so they're trying to do basically a Last Dance for the Lakers, a version of that for the Lakers.
Yeah,
pretty much just that. Yeah. Let's see. So we talked about Drive My Car. You watched Nightmare Alley, A Vision of Darkness and Light. Is this a black and white version of that?
Yes, it is. And I thought it was fucking phenomenal. Like we already talked about on this podcast about how I was a really big fan of Nightmare Alley, and it was one of my favorite films of last year. But seeing it in black and white was just such a better experience. Like it was already really great, but this like elevated even further. I'm usually kind of opposed to when directors do this. They go back and like, well, this is going to be my work in black and white. Like when they did it with Fury Road, I was like, this movie is colored so well. There's no reason to do this. When Bong Joon-ho did it with Parasite, I was like, this is kind of unnecessary. Like it doesn't really distract from the movie, but it doesn't add anything to it either. Whereas it really adds to this film. Like the kind of whole vibe of the movie being set in the 30s and 40s and being a remake of a film that came out in that time and having all these themes and aesthetics from then really worked. And it also just looked so good. Like the lighting in the movie, like where there's a scene where there's like a light hitting Kate Blanchett and in the black and white, it looked like fucking phenomenal. Like it looked so good. Me and my buddy just both turned to each other and were like, oh my gosh, the lighting in this movie is so good. And there's so many points where like there'll be a silhouette of somebody, like you'll see Bradley Cooper and he's got like the detective hat and he'll just be completely black and he'll kind of step forward and slowly he'll become black and white. And oh my gosh, it was so cool. I'm so mad that it's not streaming anywhere. You could only see this in, very select theaters. I had to see it at a local kind of art house theater. And it's streaming in two places, but you have to watch it in color, and that's just a shame to me. Because he wanted to do this in black and white originally, but the studios wouldn't let him. I guess the thinking was black and white movies don't make as much money as color movies. It didn't work. The movie made no money anyway, so they should have just let him do it in black and white.
Nice. So would you say this is your favorite movie from last year?
I would say it's definitely my favorite of the Best Picture nominees. It's between this, Spider-Man, and The Green Knight. Like it's those three are all top three for sure. Maybe you could throw The Last Duel in there. I think those four are really head and shoulders above anything else.
Yeah, nice. So you've also checked out Resident Evil. Is this another reboot, or what is this?
So this is that's the thing. There's like 4 versions going on right now concurrently. But I checked out the original because I'd never seen the 2002 Resident Evil. Because I've been trying to actually watch a lot of video game movies because I'm going to be working on a project for writing about some video game stuff and doing some stuff with my podcast about them. So I was like, all right, I need to go back and watch the really famous ones that I've never seen. And I was like, I hear this one's kind of fun, schlock, and it's before it goes really too off the rails because I'd seen some of the later ones in the Mila Jovovich series, and I was not a fan. And there's moments of that in this, but it's basically just action, dumb action scene, and then long exposition sequence, and just that over and over for an hour and a half. And that's all the movie is, really.
The one thing I remember about this movie, and the one thing people talk about when they talk about this movie, is the laser room scene, right?
Yeah, that's earlier on. It's weird because like the zombies don't even show up until 40 minutes in the movie. Like I checked the time, it was like 39 minutes exactly when you see the first zombie, and before that, it's just like like they're breaking into this like thing, and there's that laser sequence that kills like half the main characters. Yeah, it's bizarre. The plot of this movie and the pacing of it is so strange.
Jesus, I'll have to go back and watch this at some point. And you also checked out Tekken. Is this a what is this? I'm not sure what this is. Tell me what this is.
So yeah, that's another video game movie. I am a really big fan of the Tekken games. So I was like, all right, I've been kind of asking around what video game movies do I need to watch, and people are like Tekken. It's really underrated. It's really good. And I was like, all right, it's got like a 1.6 on Letterboxd or something, but let me check this out. And it's a fighting game with like so many fighting games have like the insane lore where it's like, this guy is possessed by a demon, and this guy, there's an ancient ogre god over here, and here's a kangaroo with the boxing gloves, and just like all of that being in a fighting game, And then this movie opens and it's just like, in the future, after the World War III, like corporations have taken over the world and divided into 7 things. I was like, that's not anywhere in the game. So it's just like one of those game, like for some reason, video game adaptations, I feel like a lot of times feel like they have to be like, all right, well, we'll just make this post-apocalyptic for no reason. Like the Resident Evil series goes that way. The Super Mario Brothers movies kind of do that. Like it's very strange, and it's really bad. Like there's not even like fun moments in it. It's just like one of the, honestly, like I don't like to throw movies under the bus too much, but this one was just bad. It did not even get picked up for a US release. It went straight to DVD in the US. And I can see why. Like it is borderline unwatchable. Like it's 90 minutes long, but I still couldn't do it in one sitting. I had to split it up over 2 nights.
Wow.
Yeah,
Jesus.
so video game movies. I'm trying to find some gems, but so far, of the two I've watched, it's been two misses.
Yeah, yeah. They always talk about like I don't think I've seen them in a long time, or I've seen them at all. But the Street Fighter movies, the first couple, people always talk about being decent things that were made back then. The new Mortal Kombat that came out last year. Did we see that last year? I think.
Okay, it came out last year. I that's on my list for ones I'm gonna try and watch soon. I think Detective Pikachu is actually
Yeah.
pretty good movie. I think that and Sonic, I think, are the only ones that have a positive score on Rotten Tomatoes. Sonic is just barely too. It's like a 63%. Like it's like one more bad review for Sonic and it's gonna fall run.
Yeah, yeah. It's unfortunate. It really is. So before we get to Turning Red, I just got a couple more things I wanted to mention. Severance is on Apple TV Plus right now. It's 6 episodes into a 9-episode season, directed and created by Ben Stiller, written by Ben Stiller. So it's basically, have you heard anything about this?
I've seen like the trailers, and it looks like very mind trippy and bizarre and interesting. I know Adam Scott is the main character, I think, right?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, it's got Adam Scott. It's got Zach Cherry, I believe I think he had a decent part in, maybe he was the brother in Orange is the New Black. Let's see how much we got. Christopher Walken is in this. You have John Turturro and Patricia Arquette. So some pretty big names in this. And I won't go into too much detail to spoil this, but it's basically about a world where you can say like, you go to a company and they will rewire your brain so that when you go to the office in the morning, you clock in at 8 a.m. and you completely shift to another person. You're basically birthing a whole nother person when you go here, because that person works there from 8 a.m. to 5. At 5 p.m. they clock out, and then you basically go back to the person you were at 8 a.m. So that person that works at the job has no memory, can't transfer the memories to you. All the memories are completely, encased in that building and in that person's brain. So it is very, very, what would you call that? Dystopian, very brutalist. Very brutalist architecture, very minimalist, brutalist architecture, where you have just the people that are working for this department, Jotaro and Adam Scott, are all working in this very open space room, but you're working just in 4 terminals. They are very, CRT monitors, huge keyboards, very 60s, early 70s technology looking things. But yeah, it gets very, very dark, because the very first episode is about one of the main characters. You're birthing a new person, so that this person wakes up and doesn't know where they are, why they're here. And they're just like, you're an innie. You're the people inside the company are called innies. The person outside are called the outies. So the innie person has to work there and they can't leave. And the person tries to leave. They try violently to leave. They try, very, dark and twisted ways of leaving the building. And they just are not allowed. And they have a couple of scenes where that person's outie version leaves a video message for them saying, I don't want to work anymore. I want all the benefits of working. I want the money. I want the insurance. I want all of this. I want all the benefits of working, but I don't want to work. You're going to work for me. You're going to be like my slave and you can't leave. You can't die. You can't quit. You are there forever. You will not, I'm not allowing you to leave, because she puts in her 2 weeks notice and they're like, no, denied. Then she just tries more and more violent ways, let's say, of getting out of this arrangement. And then, the person comes on and the person leaves another message of like, don't ever fucking do that again. Do not, you are borrowing my body for 8 hours. And if you fuck up my body, there's going to be consequences. It's just like, holy fuck. It's the darkest thing I've ever seen in a very long time. So highly recommend watching Severance on Apple TV Plus.
It sounds like Office Space meets or The Office maybe meets Total Recall.
Yeah.
Like that scene where he's just like, I'm you, no shit.
Yeah, I have yet to see Total Recall. That's on my watch list.
That's a classic.
One of the big sci-fi movies from the 80s I haven't seen. I haven't seen a lot of Arnold, a lot of I don't know, mid-tier Arnold, top-tier Arnold. I haven't seen Commando. I haven't seen Total Recall. I haven't seen I've seen The Predators. I've seen there's a few things from the 80s of Arnold I have to catch up on. So let's see.
It's Verhoeven, so it's very much like the kind of, we like very big and self-aware of what it is, you know.
Yeah, nice. Definitely got to check that out. All right, so I think that'll do it for everything we've been watching. So let's get to Turning Red. This is the new Pixar film. There's the first Pixar film directed solo by a woman, Brave, from 2012, was co-directed. It was co-directed by Mark Andrews and Brenda Chapman. This is directed by, let's see here, Domi Shi. She, if you watch a lot of the Pixar shorts, you would know her from the short Bao, which I just checked out this week for the first time. That was very good. Have you seen Bao?
Yeah, that was cool. That was really it's weird as fuck. You don't really know where it's going till the end, but it's really cool.
Yeah, I enjoyed that as well. So this movie stars Rosaline Chang as the main character. Let's see, what is the main character's name? Wish they had him on here. She plays May. Sandra Oh plays May's mother, Ming Lee. I have a couple other people in here, but I don't really recognize their names. You got Ava Morse. I'm not pronouncing that name. That's a lot of consonants. But yeah, very, very good movie. What did you think overall of Turning Red?
Oh, I loved it. You know, I thought it was such a, you know, interesting story. I really liked it. Was just kind of like, it was like the Hulk, but, you know, for a teenage girl almost, like that kind of same setup. But I, you know, really related to it despite not being the quote unquote target audience. And we could talk about that, how there was that review just like, oh, this feels so specific and blah, 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 basically saying like, you know, oh, this is, you know, I'm an angry white guy. This movie is not about that. Movie is about like an Asian person in Canada. So it's not for me. So I don't like it. But I still, even though, you know, I'm also just a white dude, I was like, oh, hey, this movie it does feel universal in its themes. And there was some stuff in it that did also feel kind of specific to me, where it was like, oh, I also was in middle school in 2002 and had a very overprotective mother that did not want me to go out with friends and stuff all the time and go have adventures. So I was like, oh man, there's certain things in this that are really, really hitting. But yeah, I thought it was a really well-made movie with a lot of heart. And just it you know, it was cool to see that kind of nostalgic era, the nostalgia for that era. It was smart, I feel like, placing it in 2002 also because a big part of the plot is about, you know, getting to take the pictures with the panda and the kind of novelty of it, whereas, you know, that would not be a thing. Everyone just has cell phones. Everyone can just take the picture and like, there. But, you know, it's kind of able to be a little bit more of a secret because of the time period that it's set. And I really liked all of that.
Yeah, well said. I really liked it as well. 2002, I would have been 17, 18 around then. So, you know, I knew people like that were into that sort of thing, even though it was sort of out of their age range. I was into Pokemon when I was like 15, 16. So I was definitely into stuff that was, you know, for younger kids. But yeah, all of the stuff, you know, resonates with me. I knew people that had Tamagotchis. I think Tamagotchi was like late 90s thing, so it was still a thing that I can relate to. Again, the whole relating thing is just like, I'm not Asian, I'm not a girl, but I get it. Yeah. I get wanting to please your parents. Yeah, I get wanting to please your parents. I get that pressure of trying to be perfect. Actually, you know, I can empathize with it. I can't relate to it. My parents were very hands off. They were like not checking my report. I don't think they ever checked my report cards after like 5th grade. They were just like,
dude, I got grounded for getting a C once. So I get this movie.
Yeah, that's awful, but I can empathize with it. I can see where that's coming from. And just trying to, you know, obviously everyone goes through puberty, I think. I don't know if that's a thing that some people don't, but pretty sure everyone goes through puberty. Yeah. So yeah, definitely that's a thing. That's terrible when you go through it, whether you're a male or female person. And just, I love, you know, I was into anime at that time, 16, 17-year-old. I was into anime. So a lot of, you know, visual language of anime is here with their sort of, you know, posing and all that kind of stuff. Just a lot of things that aren't a one-to-one comparison of my life as a kid, but you know, you adapt those things. You change you look at that as like, okay, yes, I know I know what it was like to be that age and try to have friends and try to go through puberty and try to hide it and try to, you know, being ashamed of it. And I knew, you know, Spanish kids who were growing up with domineering parents. So I saw that. I didn't experience it myself, but I saw it and I understand it and I relate to it. So yeah, very, very good movie. Very good overall film. Yeah. Really,
Pixar
really
is still, they knock it out of the park every time, and for some reason Disney doesn't want them to have their movies in theaters. So I don't understand that at all, but okay.
That's a really terrible thing, because you look at the movies that they put out in theaters and you look at the movies that they've put to Disney Plus. The movies they put to Disney Plus were, did they put Onward out in theaters? Or is that straight to streaming?
They did, but it came out like a week or two before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So they put it onto streaming right away.
Yeah.
And like that makes sense, but then that kind of became the model, which is, I don't know. Like I was like, they're like, oh well, Onward did so well after this very, very brief window, because of the way the world changed when it came out, and they're like, well, that's just going to be our model now for going forward, and I think that is fucking dumb.
Yeah, well, it's also not a really good look when you put Turning Red, you put Shang-Chi, and you put Raya and the Last Dragon, all movies about minorities, Asian minorities, on your streaming services, and you put other things out in theaters, right? I'm trying to think of ones that they put out in theaters in the last couple of years, but obviously Spider-Man they were going to put out in theaters, but it's not a great look when the only things you're putting out in streaming services are about minorities. Not great.
Black Widow and I don't know if Black Widow was it was Eternals though. That's that's a Marvel movie they put. So yeah, I don't know.
Luca, I think, was streaming, right? That didn't go out in theaters.
Luca was streaming, yeah. Luca that was another Pixar one, so that was streaming, yeah.
Yeah, not great. So, very, very good. Turning Red, highly recommend.
Yeah, and Raya had a very brief window theatrically. It was like a 30-day window or something like that, which is very short. Very short.
Yeah. So, highly recommend Turning Red. Anything else you want to talk about Turning Red before we get to our top 5 Pixar films?
I think, it just, honestly, it is very, despite being like very specific about a very specific community, it does feel incredibly universal and relatable.
Yeah, really, yeah, absolutely, highly agree. So let's get to our top 5 Pixar films. I watched 2 Pixar films yesterday. Did I watch two of them? No, I didn't. I watched one. Sorry, I'm lying. I watched WALL-E and I watched Finding Dory. So I did watch 2 of them. I'm going to reverse my lie. I did watch 2 of them. I watched WALL-E and I watched Finding Dory for the first time. I hadn't seen that. That didn't make my top. Finding Dory did not make my top 5 list. Not one of my favorites of the Pixars. Have you seen Finding Dory?
Yeah. It's fine. It's like it goes off the rails at the end a lot. Finding Nemo is incredible, and Finding Dory is just like, it feels like a movie that didn't need to be made, that Andrew Stanton made because they wouldn't let him make John Carter 2 because John Carter 1 lost a bunch of money. So he just was like, all right, well, I guess I'll do Finding Nemo now because they really want me to do it and I can't do my other passion project. So
yeah.
Ed O'Neill's good in it.
Ed O'Neill is very good in this. Let me see. Who else was in this? Albert Brooks, again, reprising his role as Marlin. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Who was it? Ty Burrell? That's a name I remember hearing. Oh, yeah, he's from He's the beluga
He's
whale,
from Modern Family.
Modern Family, thank you. Yep. Eugene Levy as Charlie, Dory's father. Idris Elba's Fluke. Yeah, a lot of good people in this. But yeah, unfortunately, didn't quite live up to Finding Nemo, fortunately. So my number 5, I'm going to flip some of these around. I just watched WALL-E last night. I'm going to flip that around to Toy Story 3 is my number 5. This came out in 2010. This is the third one of those, obviously. Just the ending. I think this is the movie everyone remembers for the ending, for the scene where, again, spoiler alerts for all of this stuff. We're going to talk about all these movies. The ending where they're in the incinerator and they're about to die and the aliens come and rescue them. So very, very traumatic, very anxiety-ridden ending there. And then, of course, the very ending with Andy playing with his toys for one last time was very emotionally retching there. So Toy Story 3 is my number 5.
Yeah, good pick. Yeah. My number 5 is Coco. Coco is a movie that gets me every time. It makes me cry. It's the story, it is like a lot of Pixar films, very focused on family, and much like Turning Red, on kind of just generational trauma. and the way that this handles a very unique culture that is once again not my own, but something that I think is it. You know, the way they're kind of portraying all these different things, and especially with their animation, making it look so incredible. But yeah, they never really do what you're expecting. I guess, all I really have to say about Coco is that it really, really hits me in my emotional core and like can flip that switch that just makes me sob. And also just really good songs. Like I know people love We Don't Talk About Bruno, but god damn, like some of the like Coco Loco and stuff like that, and you have that the main song that is very very upbeat, and then it's played very as a softer, Remember Me as like the slow reprise is so good. I love Coco.
Yeah, I just seen this a few years after it came out. Yeah, really really well done. I love the animation style. I love all of the environmental sort of pastiche of, the Mexican Day of the Dead stuff and all of the bright colors and all of the stuff going on in the background. Really, really great. Great movie overall. Yep. So let's see. My number 4, I'm going to say, is Inside Out. I keep having to move this one up because I just watched this other movie last night and I keep moving it up. So Inside Out. I was going to watch this again, but I remembered Bing bong. Nope, not gonna watch that. not going to subject myself to that again. I remember that quite clearly. Let me actually pull up the Wikipedia so I can remember all the names. Do you have this on your list? Is this anywhere on your list?
Oh yeah, Inside Out is definitely on my list.
Is it number 4 or is it higher?
It's higher.
Okay, so why don't we circle back to that later once we get to where it is on your list. So let's see. So let's go to number 3. What is your number 3 Pixar film?
Well, I'm on 4 for me.
Oh, you're number 4. Sorry, yeah, number 4 for you.
Yeah. So my number 4 is Up, which is there was this really interesting period where Disney was not owned, where Pixar was not owned by Disney. Well, it wasn't owned by Disney for. Since its inception, up until they bought them, I want to say in 2012, something like that. But there was a point where famously Disney and Pixar were breaking up, and Pixar was going to kind of do their own things, and Disney was going to make their own version of Toy Story 2. That's when there was these 3 Pixar movies that are kind of the really weird ones. The other ones being Ratatouille and I forget the third one, but in Up, and they're the kind of ones that are the most unique and bizarre, even by Pixar standards, because they're like, yeah, we're not working with Disney anymore. Oh, WALL-E, that was the other one. And they, of course, and they're kind of like, we can just tell these really interesting stories that are not beholden to our Disney overlords. And the one they told with Up was so good. Like the people love this movie just based on the first 5 minutes, which will floor people more than almost anything, like speaking about crying in Coco, watch the beginning of Up, but it's so much more than that too. It's also just this great adventure story, and you're really along the rise for these characters. Carl Fredricksen has this great arc, and it's a story about finding your family and fathers and sons and just kind of the weird adventures you meet along the way. But yeah, I love Up.
Yeah, nice. Not my list, unfortunately, probably in top 10, but yeah, I think the I agree with the whole, it's an adventure thing, but yeah, I don't know if it holds up, throughout the rest of the movie. I have to revisit it, but yeah, I totally agree about the father-son stuff. The thing about the movie is he's regretting not going on adventures with his wife. I forget the wife's name, but
Ellie.
Ellie, yeah, thank you. And him discovering, coming to terms with the fact that they did have adventures. You don't have to go halfway around the world to have adventures, have a, lasting, meaningful life with your significant other. You can have a significant life, at home or, within, where you're living. You can also have memorable things happen to each other. And so, yeah, that was a really great message there.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. Number 3, did I say was Inside Out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know you said 4 was Inside Out. Yeah.
4. Okay.
So now you're up to 3.
Yeah. So, see, the thing is, I had WALL-E number 5, but that's going to be higher up. So I got all screwed up. What is your number 3? Let's go to you.
All right. So let's take it back to Inside Out. My number 3 is in, or sorry, no. My number Yeah, whatever. I'll just say it's Inside Out. I was gonna have it as my number 2, but I'll say it's my number 3. I'll just switch them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Inside Out. It was on my list of my favorite films from the 2010s. Just in general, it's one of my favorite animated movies ever. I think it is such an important film for young people because there, especially in America, there is this prevailing notion of you need to be happy all the time, and if you're not happy, then you need to fix it and become happy, and all that does is just kind of like creates this fake happiness, and just you just kind of bury down your trauma and your depression. It doesn't help anyone. It just makes things worse. And it deals with her parents being good natured and like, oh hey, you always got to be happy for us, and that the pressure that puts on her, and that's something that so many people experience. And I really like the way that it just kind of personifies all these ideas about it gives the emotions like actual agency in the movie, and just kind of takes all these concepts and it's like, oh well, here's the train of thought. I think it's really creative in all those aspects, and kind of just showing Riley going through depression and a mental breakdown. You could take it as like, oh, this is a metaphor, or you can take it as like, okay, like we're seeing like literally her emotions go through this adventure, and it really works either way. So this is a movie that I went through after I went through a breakup. I watched the movie like the next day. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna like watch this movie about feeling sad now and feel better about feeling sad. And I think it really is important. Like you need to feel sad sometimes. And this movie is like, hey, like it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be happy. It's okay if those things get mixed in interesting, weird ways. So I absolutely love Inside Out.
Yeah, really great movie. Yeah, like you said about, in America, we have this idea that you have to be happy all the time or you have to be content. And people, I think it's also the fact that so many parents have a hard time relating to their kids because, technology is moving so fast and social media is moving so fast, and it's it's getting harder and harder for, millennials and even older parents to relate to their kids. And I think this is a great, example of, people are kind of all the same, even though society and civilization has changed so much in the past 50 years. But deep down, you just have all these same feelings, sadness and anger and all that stuff. It's just at the core of people, we're all really the same as we have been. We still have, reptile brains, even though we have so much advanced technology. So yeah, I agree with, everything you said. And it's unfortunate that, there's some people that I know have friends that have kids now, and they are struggling to maintain a good relationship with them because there are so many things going on that they can't relate to. Again, going back to the turning red discussion we just had, relating to your kid doesn't mean you have to be on Twitch or you have to be online. You have to engage with all of their activities that they're interested in. It just means you have to sympathize with them and empathize with them and be like. The other thing is just like, I don't think it's a generational thing. I just think it's an adult kid thing. I think so many people have a hard time going back and remembering, oh, I was a kid and I was angry and I didn't act rationally and I made really stupid choices when I was a kid. I did really dumb things that could have physically or emotionally or mentally hurt me. And I think people need to understand that your brain is still forming when you're even up to like your early 20s. So understanding that, people are just like this. They have so many different emotions bouncing around in the head at the exact same time, where you're not bipolar just because one day you're sad, next day you're happy, next day you're horny, next day you're hungry, next day whatever. It's just your brain and your body are changing so fucking fast, and you have so many different things going on at the same time that it's hard to focus on one thing ever. So really great movie that sort of physically manifests the physical representation of all those things that are going inside a kid's head all at once.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said.
Thanks. So again, let's see. Let me just talk about WALL-E. I think so. Just full disclosure. I have sold number one. It's because it was so it's a recency bias, and it was so hard hitting, and I have such a great respect for that movie. So let's talk about our number twos. My number two is WALL-E. Again, I just watched it the other night. Man, the things that this company can do, like you said with Up, no dialogue in that opening sequence, and again, very very little dialogue at the beginning of WALL-E, and even throughout WALL-E, there's very little dialogue. And this reminds me of going back and watching all the Charlie Chaplin movies from the 20s a few years ago, and how much a storyteller can tell without words. And if you go back and watch any Chaplin movies, I would recommend watching City Lights. It's so emotionally impactful, and I think. It's a great movie. It is a great movie, and I didn't do much research into WALL-E, but I'm almost assuredly that they watched a lot of Chaplin movies to get that sort of that way of projecting emotion through movements and not through words. First time Eva comes down to Earth and meets WALL-E, and there's so many moments where she's like, they're starting to talk, and WALL-E's like. He says her name. He says his name, and somehow she says directive, and she points to the thing in her chest or whatever. She's like, "This is my directive," and she's like, "Directive?" And he goes and makes a little. He grabs some garbage, puts it himself, and makes a box. And he goes, "Ta-da!" That's hilarious. It's so cute and hilarious.
It's a great moment.
It's such a great moment. There's so many little moments of him. You can just express so much emotion in his eyes and his movements and his hand movements, and just, oh my God, every time she would say WALL-E, and he would say Eva. Oh my God, just crushes me every single time, especially at the end when he's there's the moment where she has the remnants of a flower of life on Earth, and they put it into the thing, and the ship is fighting back against it. So this pillar that has the green thing in it starts going down, and they're gonna shut down the ship and stay in space. So WALL-E put himself in between the pillar and the ground, and the pillar starts going down farther and farther, and it crushes him. And you have the moment where Eva goes over and she's like, WALL-E, WALL-E, oh my God, you're just crying over a fucking inanimate object trying to revive another one. It's just crushing. Oh my God.
Yeah. No, I love WALL-E. Like it didn't make my list. I just because I didn't have enough slots. I've got more than 5 movies that I would say are 5-star movies for me when it comes to Pixar. And WALL-E is absolutely one of these perfect movies that just didn't make the cut. It's all the stuff you said. It's so good, and it is just kind of WALL-E is just this great aspirational character that makes everyone around him better. He just wants to be do good, and it's the same thing we're talking about with Turning Red, where it's like, I'm not a robot. I've never lived in a post-apocalyptic world where everyone's fat in a space station or whatever, but you still feel the emotions that WALL-E feels. You can still understand being in love and trying to fight for the things you believe in and stuff like that. It's just so, and it looks incredible too.
Yeah.
That scene where they're floating out in space and they've got the fire extinguisher. I was just like, that looks way better than when they do the same scene in Gravity a year later or whatever. So I fucking love WALL-E. It's so good. It's so wholesome. I really like the environmental message that it puts in it, but it's doesn't feel like it's laying it on too thick at the same time.
Yeah.
So very, very good movie for sure.
So great. I forgot about the whole plot of it is just they send it. It's 500 years in the future, and I forget the guy who plays him, but the president was just Fred Willard. He plays the president.
Fred Willard, yeah.
And the first message is hey, congratulations, Captain, you found. If you've seen this message, you found evidence of life is coming back to Earth. Congratulations. And then they play the next message, and you're like, fuck it. We're done. We fucked this shit so hard. Yeah. Just stay in space for, I don't know, however long you want. It's fine. Sorry. Bye. Yeah. It's just hilarious. Oh, man. So let's see. So, yeah, did you do your number 2? Was that your number 2?
I have not gotten my number 2 yet. Sure. So my number 2 is The Incredibles. I was 14 when this movie came out. It's interesting because it felt like it was a big turning point for Pixar, but it was also a big turning point in my life, when I'm 14 and I'm starting to get into real movies, and I could really understand what makes a movie good and what makes a movie, just kind of fun or whatever. And this was wow, I was like, this is a movie and it's the first time kind of Pixar brings in an outside director. They bring in Brad Bird, who made the Iron Giant and, a lot of other great stuff. And he just kind of, it's a family, and it's the first time you get to see actual people in a Pixar movie as opposed to toys or fish or whatever, or bugs, because they have actually kind of reached the technology to make them look pretty decent. But yeah, this whole family dynamic where it is this kind of quote unquote nuclear family, and it's set in this kind of retro future, like what the 1950s thought the 1980s were going to be like almost.
Yeah.
And it's a superhero thing, and I love superhero stuff, and it kind of deconstructs all of those tropes, and it is kind of like people love to say like they've already made a perfect Fantastic Four movie, and it's The Incredibles, and they are so right. It feels very mature for a kids movie. There's actual real danger that the kids are put in. Like the mom even says, like these are not like the villains you see on your cartoons. They will kill you. So there's a lot of like it feels like more of like, oh, this is like a movie for maybe like teenagers or like older kids, not necessarily like your Toy Stories or your Bugs Lives, or even your Monsters Inc. Where it does feel like, wow, this is something with some real stakes. There's a lot of like interesting visual storytelling, like with Wall-E, where it's just like he'll just be doing detective stuff, and it'll be like you're like kind of like just having to follow the visual clues. Like no one just gives you these exposition dumps. It's like there's that whole scene where he's just clicking, and seeing the dead heroes pop up, and he's piecing together what happened.
Oh, yeah.
And just it's because it's a perfect family movie as far as I'm concerned, which are I think kind of hard to pull off. It's the sequel's also very, very good, but the first one for me, for a long time, I think it was my number one Pixar. It did eventually get edged out by what my number one pick is going to be. Yeah. But yeah, Incredibles.
Nice, really, really well said. Yeah, I don't remember seeing this for the first time. I think it's the one I had to go back and watch, and I think this is one of the movies that we talk about, holding up in terms of graphical quality. I think doesn't quite hold up in the graphics department. I know there's a part near the end where they're in the water and something falls on them or about to fall on them, and the water doesn't look great. She doesn't look great, but yeah, overall really, really great. Like you said, great Mission Impossible movie. Brad Bird, let me see, what else did he do? He did the Incredibles, then he directed Ratatouille, great Pixar movie. What do you think about like that whole? Is there a golden age of Pixar? Are we in the golden age of Pixar? Was there a golden age, if there was one, from 2003 with Finding Nemo to, let's say, 2010 with Toy Story 3? Was that the best? Was that the best of Pixar?
I think so. Yeah, I think honestly, like especially like because I think honestly probably from like '95 when they first came out with their Toy Story 1, their first feature, up till then. After they get bought out by Disney, I think there are some reasons where they're not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not quite the same. I think part of it is because a lot of them get intermingled with Disney. Genius, but an all-time fucking creep, John Lasseter becomes a Disney guy instead of just a Pixar guy, so they don't have his kind of like oversight. They also start to do stuff that's more for kids, like with Cars. And then they start to, a big part of the reason why up till then Toy Story 2 was the only sequel is because Disney basically fucked them over and was like, oh yeah, they had like a deal for like so many movies to make movies for Pixar, and then they're like, oh, Toy Story 2 didn't count. Sequels don't count. Like it was going to be direct to DVD even though it did come out in theaters. And so that's why they're like, okay, we'll just never make sequels for you guys because you're going to say they don't count. So they just kept making new original movies, and they weren't like, as much as I'm like, I don't think sequels are bad. I think, I did a whole thing on my show about how a lot of sequels are underrated, but, you don't always need to keep going back to that well. Sometimes you can be like, all right, that's why one of the reasons why I love A Bug's Life. It's just a complete story, and now we don't have to worry about, like, what happened when, like Hopper came back. Like, he wouldn't come back. Another all-time creep, Hopper in that movie. But yeah, like you can just tell a story, and you don't have to like Monsters Inc. is done. You don't have to be like, okay, what were they doing before? Okay, now it's monsters at work. And they were just focused only specifically on making new stories, and especially that like 3-picture thing where they're like, we can just do whatever we want right now. And they made Wall-E, Ratatouille, and Up, which are just, regardless of what you think of them, so creative. Like some of the like this is a movie about a guy who gets a chef who gets controlled by a hat, and it's in like through a rat with his hair, and it's in France, and it's just like no like studio exec would be like, yeah, go make that, you know. But they were just like, fuck it, we're Pixar, we're gonna do what we want, So once Disney came in and they started working on more things, working on more sequels, getting a little bit more diluted. I think they lost just a little bit of the magic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I look at the movies post Toy Story 3, post 2010, a lot of sequels, Cars 2, Monsters University, Finding Dory, Cars 3, Incredibles 2, Toy Story 4, but you also have a lot of original movies like Brave, like Inside Out, Coco, Onward, Soul, Luca. The last 4 have been originals. Onward, Soul, Luca, and Turning Red have all been originals. So that's a good, it's a promising.
Yeah, I think they're back on the upswing. I think they're really on the upswing again, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we get to our number 1? I was just to say real quick, I guess we'll do my number 2 was Luca. I'm sorry, I'm so out of whack.
Oh yeah, WALL-E, did we skip? I got all mixed up.
Yeah, WALL-E. I have because I originally had WALL-E number 5, then I watched it last night. I was like, oh my god, this is the best movie ever. My number 2 is Luca. It's a very I'm glad you brought The Incredibles into here. Just a mixture of more light fare into my emotional dour picks here. But Luca, again, a little bit lighter. Reminds me of some of the best. I think I mentioned this one when I saw it. Was this last year? Let me see. 2021.
2021.
Yeah, so it reminds me of the best of Ghibli movies from Up on Poppy Hill, Whisper of the Heart, Only Yesterday. The very small, simple story about kids just trying to win a bike race. Talked about this a bunch of times with Dion about how you could make the argument, you could look at it as an allegory for othering, for a movie about the monster being a queer person or whatever, a black person, because the what's the guy's name here? The actual characters. Let's see, Alberto is a little darker than Luca, so you can make the argument that it's about darker skinned people, but you just go into it and you'd be like, yeah, great movie about kids having an adventure, really great art, again, great original small little story. Really liked it.
Yeah. Luca's great. It's definitely just like, honestly, if for nothing else, you can also it's just like a funny movie. It's like a great kids movie, honestly.
Yeah.
And that you can watch as an adult and you're not gonna be like, oh my gosh, this is interminable. It's actually super enjoyable.
Yeah. That gets me to another point I forgot to mention. A lot of Pixar movies are, I think there's two types of Pixar movies. There's the movies that are made for adults or geared towards adults, but kids can also enjoy them. And then you have movies geared towards kids, but adults can also enjoy them. I think Luca is geared towards kids, but you can be an adult and you can look for those themes and those messages in there. Turning Red is for kids, but looking for my number 1, that's a movie that I'll mention in a little bit. That's for more geared towards adults, but kids can also enjoy them. Toy Story is an interesting one. The Toy Story series is interesting because you could say it's made for kids, but a lot of really dark themes in there as well. Let me see, something like like I said, Inside Out for geared towards younger kids, but you also can be like if you're an adult and you can think back and have empathy and relate to that era in your life, you can also get a lot out of that. So would you agree that there's two types of Pixar movies?
I think you could definitely classify it that way. Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah. Okay, so we're at number 1, I believe. Why don't you go first? Tell me what your number 1 Pixar film is.
All right, so people might have noticed that I have not mentioned the Pixar definitive series on my top 10 list yet, or my top 5 list yet, and that's because my number 1 is Toy Story 3. I know it was your number 5. Yeah. It's close between this and Toy Story 2 for me. I think they're both, all of the Toy Story movies are just like perfect films.
Yes.
But for me, at least with the originals, they just kept getting better and better and deeper and more interesting. Whereas the first one, it's like, this is a really cool world. And the second one kind of like asks, like, what are the implications of this world? Like, okay, so we're toys. What happens when kids grow up? And then, they're kind of worried about that. And the third one takes that to its logical conclusion, where it's like, now Andy is grown up and we have to reckon with this and we have to move on. And the movie is about growing up yourself. And it really hit for me because I have always been the same age as Andy in all these movies. I was 5 when the first one came out. I was 9 when the second one came out. And I was in college when Toy Story 3 came out, when Andy was getting ready to go to college. So this hit with me in a deep personal way. And just, it's like it's very surprisingly dark, this movie. Like, it goes to some dark places, like you mentioned. At the end, you think they're gonna die and be inside. And I really, like, in the theater was like, oh my god, this is how Toy Story ends. Like, this is how it needs to end. They need to be like, incinerated and die. Like, this is the tragic ending for Toy Story. This is the only way it could. And then it's like the Deus Ex Machina, but it's like with Deus Ex Machina is actually set up over a course of 3 movies with a claw. Like, it comes in, it's perfect. And oh my gosh, there's so much that I could say. I could do an entire podcast on Toy Story 3.
Yeah.
But like that last scene, and I've talked a couple times about crying. Nothing gets me like that last scene where Andy plays with his toys for one last time. He's like leaving his childhood behind it, but he's giving them a new home, and Woody has to move on too, and Woody has to grow up and let go and realize that he can be there for someone else, and he doesn't need to be there for Woody anymore. And that little, like, when he's leaving and then she takes the hand of Woody and just kind of does that like little wave. Oh my god.
Yep.
That shit punches my heart in the balls. Like, God, that's it's so fucking good. Yeah. I can rewatch Toy Story 3 whenever. Obviously, 1's perfect, 2's perfect, 4 is a movie that doesn't need to exist, and it's better than it has any right to be. But 3 is goddamn great. Like, I fucking love 3.
Yes, it's really amazing. I got to rewatch this. I don't know if I've seen it since it first came out, but yeah, this is just incredible. It has all and it is amazing that they are able to, again, talking about the fourth one, take that idea and then run with it again, where you have in 4 you have Woody, understanding that, there's always going to be another kid. There's always going to be another Andy, but Andy's going to be his first one. Again, you can't ever get away from that one. Really, really great. I got to rewatch this again sometime. Yeah. But
and it's a perfect ending to the trilogy. Even though they made one more movie, it still like feels like a perfect trilogy. Like that and Lord of the Rings are the only perfect trilogies, and as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, exactly. So my number 1, again, very sad, very touching, very existentially kicking the balls. Existential kicking the balls. My number 1 is Soul. This is from 2021 or the end of 2020, I believe. I put this on my list very late
2020.
That year. Yeah. So let me see. Let me just pull up real quick all the stuff. Directed by Pete Docter. I believe he is the now chief creative officer at Pixar, which is great because he's part of some of the best Pixar movies of the last 25 years. So let's see. This came out in 2020, directed by Pete Docter. Stars Jamie Foxx, Tina Fey, Graham Norton. Love Graham Norton's character in this. Let me just bring up my notes from when I first talked about it. Soul is wonderful. It is sad. It's joyful. I love the music and the sound design. I listen to a lot of stuff because I watch a lot of stuff at night. So I'll listen on noise canceling headphones, and the ambient noise, the ambient score in the background done by Atticus Ross was incredible. Love the score in this, and all the little sound effects in the background is really great. It's full of heart. It is deeply meaningful about finding your passion in life and discovering that just living and enjoying life can be enough. We're asked as kids all the time, what do you want to be when you grow up? And this gets back to your point about being happy or being content or finding a goal. Where we ask kids all the time, what's your goal? Like 10-year-olds, hey kid, what do you want your GPA to be when you're fucking in college? What do you want your career path to be when you're 10 years old? Like, fuck that. That shouldn't be a thing we ask kids anymore. The question we get as adults is, what do you want to do? We've been raised to believe that our worth and our identity is mainly tied to our job or career or our spark. And this movie, at that point where he does the performance finally, he reaches his goal. He gets to where he wanted to be all his life, and he walks out of the club, and he looks around. And he's like, "Is that it? This is what I've been going for my entire life." And now what? It's just very existentially, just kills you. It explores the idea that maybe just living and experienced life should be enough. When he's outside, he looks up and he sees the walnut. I forget what they call the thing. The walnut. The helicopter walnut thing that just spins around. It's like, maybe that's it. Maybe the meaning of life isn't to work 40 hours a week and put a 401k away so you might have enough money when you retire. Maybe that's not it. Maybe life isn't about the grind, Karen. Maybe shut the fuck up about your MLM and your whatever. I'm a boss. NFTs. I'm a boss babe. I'm a boss lady. Shut up. but yeah, really, really great. I gotta rewatch this one again. But yeah, I really, really like the music, and the sound design was incredible. Yeah, really like this.
Yeah. And it's no coincidence, you brought up the parallels between this and what I mentioned with Inside Out. They're both Pete Docter films, and I think that this one, like Inside Out, does such a good job of taking this abstract concept and that one, being emotions, and this one it just kind of being like about your quote unquote purpose in life, and kind of just does it in an interesting way. Whereas like a kid can be like watching and be like, "Oh, this cat is funny," but like you and I can be like, "Wow, this is so deep," and like it also looks so incredible, like the way that like everything's just kind of fuzzy and like the between going kind of between like the afterlife slash dream world and like the reality, and interesting concepts like how they go and like they find these people who are able to meditate and like reach this higher plane, and they get on the ship and stuff like that. Pete Docter's great at that shit, honestly. Like, beautiful chef's
Yeah,
kiss.
exactly. So I believe that is it. Our top 5 Pixar movies of all time so far. It's definitely going to be more out there, so definitely have a chance to revisit this list in the near future. So I believe that'll do it for another Can I Say Something, but let's plug our stuff first. Oh, let's see. I got my Medium blog. Haven't posted that in a while, but still, I got stuff on there that you can still check out. I do a little bit of a review for every movie I post. Still doing my 1 movie a day challenge for 2022. I believe I'm up to, I don't know, let's say 90, 95 movies this year. So yeah, dude.
Ooh.
Yeah, definitely check that out. Always another movie or 2 or 3 movies going up every day on there. So go to my letterbox, damien.sherman.letterbox, whatever it's called. Look me up there. So I believe that's all I got. Derek, what do you got to plug?
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned a couple times that I also do another podcast. It's called Underrated, where it's a film podcast where we talk about underrated films. So we had an episode going up today. It's on the Steven Soderbergh film Logan Lucky from a couple years back. So we have new episodes every other week as well. I do some writing on Medium, not as much as Damien. I have a letterbox as well. I thought I was doing really well with seeing 61 movies so far this year, but
Yeah.
Damien's got me beat. So, but yeah, however you're listening to this, if you want to go check out my podcast Underrated, or look me and my friends up who do that show, just look up Undercast Company on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and you can go ahead and give us a follow there. That would be much appreciated.
Awesome. So for Can I Say Something episode 134, I have been Damien. And we'll see
And
you
I've been
in
Derek.
2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye.